Hello and hi. Welcome back to your new favorite Hunter x Hunter channel. This is Taffer. Hello again. Maybe not again. Halkenburg is who we're talking about. If you recently read chapter 413, he's up to something. He's doing something, that Halkenburg, that little scamp. And I've I've done a lot of recording and, logging over the past couple days trying to figure out what is he up to? What is he doing? And I have a lot of ideas that I think are pretty damn novel that I'd like to share with you guys today. This is also going to be an unscripted video. This is literally just going to be me talking and recording my screen. There's going to be no editing, no cuts, no anything. If I flib and flub or if I drink water, you're just gonna have to deal with it. All right, it's part of the format. Get used to it. So from 413, all we know really of Hulkenberg's plan is that he rumbles, he fires an arrow. Presumably, we assume he fires an arrow, even though here he's not stanced up to do it. But we'll get there. And then Benjamin realizes he's poisoned, and that plays into the whole declaration of martial law. Right, that's where we're at right now. And everyone's been talking about what is Hulkenberg doing, and I want to take a few steps back, right? I don't want to look at what he's doing. I want to look at why he is doing it, right? And to start off with, Hulkenberg's by far number one priority is to get the fuck out of Balsamico's body, right? Hulkenberg estimates, I believe this is 403, that he only has 10 hours after his own body's death that he'll be able to control Balsamico with the sleeping pills that he ingests, right? We don't know exactly how early morning was when Hulkenberg died, but currently in universe, it is about 2 p.m. So if he died before 2 a.m., or not even 2 a.m., it would have to be 4 a.m. He's got 4 a.m. to now, right? Like 4 a.m. is, I think, about the end of what you could charitably consider early morning. So, I have to imagine he's extremely close to expiring within Balsamico's body. And if we go back to how Grimmel's dissonance works, if two people are within the same body, right, only the victim, the victim's soul takes priority. And if it awakens, it pushes the invader's soul out. And that's what Hulkenberg doesn't want, because if Balsamico wakes up, there's no way to forcibly wake up Hulkenberg until Balsamico himself falls back asleep. So he wants out, right? That is the bare, absolute minimum of what Hulkenberg is trying to do. And now I think it's useful to try and look at where Balkenberg currently is. Because Benjamin is under the assumption that he is in room 1009. That would be Hulkenberg's room on tier 1. But I would have really liked Benjamin to have shown his work here, because there's no real reason other than impulsive arrogance, impulsive jumping to conclusions, to believe that Balsamico Hulkenberg is within 1009, right? How would Balsamico get up there without people noticing? But we'll get more into that later. But I just wanted to know he does not show his work. And I also want to note that we know that when a prince dies, their room gets fully cordoned off and closed, and assumingly nobody can enter it, right? And that's when this end of chapter graph that we get, this drawing, we see 8, 10, and 12 all X'd because all those princes are dead. We see 9 not X'd, but currently not having anyone within it. This makes sense. Hulkenberg's body was just delivered to the morgue. If this were a normal circumstance, the guards would be presumably coming back to take affix and move elsewhere, right? So his room is still technically open. Somebody could go in there, but I don't know how likely it is that anybody is in there, especially the guards or anything that Hulkenberg had, because while they are on tier 1, would they hightail it back here? I don't know. And so I want to move back a bit to Balkenberg's 100% last known location. His complete last known location is here at 8 a.m. within the Ministry of Justice in tier 2. This is when Balkenberg tells Benjamin that he'll return to Tier 1 once all his personal guards have been reassigned below Tier 2, which would presumably take some period of time after 2 p.m. And then we also have to remember that by this point on day 12, Kaiser met with good old Mr. Where is he? Wario Bay, right? This happened on day 11. This is after Halkenburg was poisoned, but before he dies. Wario Bay is somebody who was reported to pass out from like the mass syncope episode that Halkenburg talked about, but at a different time and location than when everyone else did. And this whole thing is likely bait on Halkenburg's part to get somebody who knows enough about Nen to know that something is fishy, but knows enough to also not want to meet directly with Halkenburg, which is what gets Kaiser in with direct contact to Wario. And so by this point, it is unknown if they have made any contingencies or plans or anything. However, I do want to note that in this conversation that is just about Katro and Fugetsu, Kaiser very unceremoniously interjects with whether Ninth Prince Halkenburg got himself killed or was assassinated by First Prince Benjamin. His funeral will be grand and solemn as not offend the people. We'll wait to see until the funeral is over and hope it ends smoothly. Meanwhile, we should prepare ourselves for whatever comes next. This is odd. Kaiser's an odd fellow, we know that. But it is very odd to me that not only that he introduces the Halkenburg funeral, not only that he hopes it ends smoothly, which, I mean, they would have no reason not to, right? But also that they should prepare for what comes next, right? The funeral really shouldn't impact their plans at all. They just want to assassinate Losers that night. So what would Halkenburg's anything have to do with this? Well, you know, maybe he's doing something, maybe he's not. We don't know. And this was the last time-stamped location. But the last time we saw him was in 413, which is him, you know, strapped to this chair somewhere, right? We don't know. One thing I do want to note, though, is that these supporters behind him that we see in this picture, this is not the first time we've seen these supporters. If you go all the way back to chapter 403, we get these folks. And there are 12 of them within this frame, 13 if you count Laptop Boy. And in here, you have a total of 13 as well. We know these are likely the same because, you know, lady in a wheelchair and also their general frames line up very satisfyingly. So that very much makes me believe that Halkenburg was with these guys in Tier 2. These are the Tier 2 visitors that he was with. And he is still with them while in Balsamico's body. And if Balsamico were in Tier 1 to activate the ability that Benjamin thinks happened, Balsamico would have had to take all of these supporters all the way up to Tier 1 by himself, right? And Balsamico has high clearance within the Royal Army, right? But are we sure that he has the requisite authority to, you know, chauffeur all of these people up to Tier 1 without having to, you know, contact any higher powers like Benjamin or raise any flags that would have arose Benjamin's suspicions at all? Sure, like maybe Unma could help with this, but who really knows? And regardless, how wheelchair accessible is Tier 1? Because good old homegirl's in a wheelchair. We don't really know how that works. And this is kind of the end, right, of where we can assume Balkenburg is. Except I have a crackpot fuck theory. This is the chair, right? This is unbelievable. I looked through pretty much the entire Succession War so far, skimmed it, and I was looking to see if there were any chairs that look like this, because we've been given chairs, you know, somewhat often within these chapters. If I can look, I believe 404 here, we get a kind of cutting montage between different people in different chairs. So we have Benjamin here, we have Camilla reclining, we have Zheng Lei in this very ornate one, and then we have you know, these guys as well, like, and then we have a rocking chair with Oito, right? chairs are a thing in this arc. They do differ and they do change based on location. And I looked through to see, has this chair shown up before? Is there anything that looks like this chair that we've seen before? And the answer is yes. This is my best estimate of the chair that Halkenburg is currently in. It does differ slightly. This does look like a legged chair instead of a wheel one. But the general frame, bulk, and size of the chairs directly matches, and it's the only one that is remotely even close to this. Most other chairs that we see within the Justice Department, within the Tier 3 police station, are, you know, either just normal desk chairs or they're like weird folding chairs that are look really cheap and uncomfortable. So, you know, maybe he's in the Tier 3 community safety station, maybe not. But that's kind of not my... That's besides the point slightly, as this got me thinking about the Tier 3 Central Police Station, right? And Drink 410, this is a split panel, I'll have to pull both up. We know that Benjamin, sometime after martial law is declared, is with Boltabai, Mizayastom, and Kaiser in the Tier 3 political ward. This is the Tier 3 political ward. This houses, what do we got? This is the legal and political enforcement agencies, which would be the police station. It has the Royal Army office, which is where Balsamico would need to go to reassign Halkenburg's personal guards, and the aforementioned central courthouse, which is headed by Boltabai, which is what we see here in the central courthouse. Also, the central medical clinic is presumably near here as well, which means that this Tier 3 political ward, this central station, is someplace that Benjamin, if he wants to both declare martial law and get anything out of it, to consolidate the powers of the different branches of government and complete his succession war, he needs to get here regardless. This is one of the places he has to go. All right. And we know that this is 40 minutes after martial law was declared, which was declared at 2:15, which makes this about 2:55 p.m. when he is here. But this also got me thinking, because is the 410 poisoning that we learn about here different from Benjamin's current poisoning? And the answer is yes, it almost certainly has to be. In 410 here, we learn that Benjamin believes that he has about 9.5 hours left of conscious time before he goes into comatose, right? Before he succumbs to TSK-17. And that's strange because he should have been poisoned well before 2 p.m., right? But now he's acting like he got poisoned shortly after 2 p.m., which is incredibly strange. In 402 here, this is our first, or I guess I could actually pull this panel out. We learn initially that the TSK-17, the proteins are fragile, they denigrate in 30 seconds in the air. And once you're infected, they proliferate rapidly, and you will die 12 hours from first infection for multiple organ failure. And in 410, this also matches with Benjamin's conception, saying that he has 10 hours of conscious time left and then 2 in a coma before he dies, right? But if Furikov here, if his poisoning was real, Balsamico at 2 p.m. should only have 4 hours left of waking time, since the incubation period of TSK-17 is 6 hours. 6 plus 4 equals 10, with the 2 remaining being the coma for the full 12-hour time. But, you know, now he doesn't think that happened. So what happened with Furikov's poisoning? Is it fake? Is, you know, something different? We don't know. All we do know is that the queen, Unma in this case, demanded that Furikov use TSK-17 on Prince Benjamin within 48 hours, or else Beyond would activate the curse, which Furikov believed would kill Benjamin, which would then not let him activate his beast, which would not allow whatever the hell he is planning, right? That is why Furikov poisoned him, and that is why Furikov also poisoned him in a way that Benjamin would come back to him, right? Furikov was ordered, and we know that Halkenburg's last official contact was here that happened in chapter 403, which would be presumably early morning day 11 around 8 a.m. We don't know when specifically Halkenburg asked Unma and Unma ordered Furikov to do this, but that's kind of besides the point in a sense. If Halkenburg's final plan is to assume Benjamin's body, is to take over Benjamin's body, this 48 hours of possible wiggle room is much too large to make any proactive plan on, right? You would have to play entirely reactively to when Furikov poisoned Ben and go from there, right? So if Furikov's poisoning wasn't actually meant to be the point of infection for Ben, what purpose does it serve? Since we know this is not the real poisoning based on 410, what was this poisoning? What did this mean? And, you know, to an extent, I could see the read that Unma masterminded this whole thing, knew of Furikov's temper, knew when he would do this based on his shift schedules, and knew that Furikov would want Benjamin to find out that it was him, to then do all of this and blah, 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 blah. You could read this. You can pause the video. There's so much that Unma would have needed to get done to do this, to get this fake poisoning off cleanly, that it is pretty inane to think this has happened. I mean, not inane, insane. Unma would be the smartest character in the universe. So I really don't think that is the case. So Benjamin was poisoned fakely. And then soon after, around 2:25, 10 minutes after he declared martial law, he got poisoned big mode for real this time. And we have to question if the Furikov poisoning was fake. What does Halkenburg potentially even gain off of it, right? First off, since Benjamin is symptomatic and the timeline matches up perfectly with Furikov, it is somewhat safe to assume that the TSK-17 strand, or whatever that Furikov was given, matches up enough with TSK-17 for, you know, Benjamin and everyone else to assume that, right? I will say, if Onuma diverted this from the Weapons of Mass Destruction R&D, fucking awesome name, by the way, this could, you know, be fake. It could be something made to imitate TSK-17. It could be a different strand. It could be any number of things, right? But that's not what I'm getting at. Because, you know, if this poisoning was fake, what was gained for Halkenburg? The most obvious gain is that it lights a huge fire under Benjamin's ass to end the war in the 4 hours left that he has. Wait, did I fuck up my thing? Guys, I'm sorry. I suck at this. It's okay, though. I skipped over something. It's okay. So if the first poison is fake, right, that means the second poisoning was the real one. But what does this first one really get him? You know, it gets him to believe that there's 4 hours left, and then the second poisoning is what gives him room to, you know, think that he has more time left, right? With this initial poisoning, with Benjamin believing this, he is wrapping up this war as quick as he can because he has 4 hours left. And with Benjamin or Halkenburg's rumbling as well, he can't immediately trust anyone in tier 1 because of it, right? We know Benjamin is impulsive, and we know he's short-sighted, and we know that he really doesn't like people getting one over on him, right? And without his right-hand man, Balsamico, he could make some sloppy plays that might even get him, you know, for real poisoned. But what does, you know, this second real poisoning gain? Is there anything gotten from giving him a fake poisoning initially and then giving him a real dosage secondly, right? Based on 410, 225 is around when Benjamin believes he was for real poisoned. Everything before could have been caused Benjamin to play sloppily as he's impulsive and brash, which I said, which, gave someone, maybe Hulkenberg's personal guards, the opportunity to actually poison Ben for real this time. Ben being poisoned a second time, but being told or gaining the knowledge that his first poisoning was a fake, would actually, overall be good for Ben, right? I mean, he'd obviously be pissed that he had been got again, but his 4 hours left now went to 10. He gained 6 hours and will die sometime around midnight, which, all things considered, is a boon. That is better than what Benjamin had conceptualized for himself, right? Getting a huge amount of extra time would obviously change Benjamin's plans and what he believes he'd be able to accomplish in ways we can't really know, right? But this is fucked up. What if both this fake and real poisonings and everything before this was according to whatever Halkenburg wanted to do? I'm about to take a drink of water, so we're gonna pull up these little fellas. Delicious, delicious water. So Halkenburg could have planned the fake poisoning and rumbling to force Benjamin to declare martial law, and then rely on some other surefire way to convincingly poison Ben for real this time, and give him the knowledge that the first poisoning by Furykov was a false alarm. What this would do was how it would have Benjamin act with the belief he has 10 hours left of his life to wrap up the succession war and really, cross his T's and dot his I's, while in actuality, he only has the initial 4 that, he thought he had. And, this whole plan would be to give Benjamin enough immediate purpose and pretense to declare martial law, have him go as nuclear as he can in capturing the other princes, have him do as much as he can, really sprint to wrap it all up, and then convince him that he has more time left, which would then slow him down in whatever his takeover is. This also works very cleanly for Halkenburg if his final plan is to take over Benjamin. TSK 17, the last 2 hours are in comatose. That person, that soul, is asleep. And we know that if 2 souls are in the same body, if the main soul is asleep, the invading soul can manifest, right? And so if Halkenburg was able to get in Benjamin during this time at any point in time, Benjamin would go into comatose before he thought he would, which means his plans wouldn't have gone through, which would give Halkenburg an incredibly clean and incredibly opportune moment to assume Benjamin and, finish whatever he wants to get done within Benjamin's body. Best case scenario, all the princes are captured and all of the powers are consolidated into Benjamin. The rest is, all that Benjamin would need to do is kill them and then get all of the paperwork to get his son to inherit the throne. That would be Halkenburg's most opportune time. So that this is all, talking about what Halkenburg could be doing. But I haven't really talked about what Halkenburg, what thoughts he has given us yet. Within this chapter 413, Halkenburg acknowledges that, it would be impossible to meet Benjamin face to face without Benjamin realizing Balsamico isn't Balsamico. And instead of doing that, Halkenburg wishes to test a new hypothesis with his ability. And, I'm going to draw a little bit of, there's some different interpretations here. In the official translation, Halkenburg makes clear that the test of this new hypothesis is something different from an arrow that has been fired on Benjamin anyways. This test is something separate from whatever is his plans for Benjamin are currently, or whatever is happening to Ben currently. While the Voracious Drake translation just says, in that case, I might as well try out a new hypothesis to understand my own ability. An arrow is already headed towards brother, right? In this reading, it seems that whatever plan is underway towards Benjamin is, it's not entirely separate, but it doesn't necessarily include this new hypothesis, right? They're not mutually exclusive. While in the official translation, it very much reads that the arrow and plan towards Benjamin is something separate from his new hypothesis and test. What that means and what you want to read of that, I'll leave up to you. And what his hypothesis could be really be any number of things, because in regards to Grimmelis Dissonance, Halkenburg is in a incredibly novel position right now. Not only are there two souls within one body when the arrow is being fired, but one of the two souls within this body has no original body to return to. They are an unbound soul, right? And thirdly, one of the people slash souls within here is not a supporter of Halkenburg who is marked with the pin feather, and that would be Balsamico. He is in here, but he is not part of Halkenburg's, group, his supporters. And how any of those factor in what Halkenburg wishes to test it is unknown. It is too speculatory to really, give out any takes on it. The only thing I would want to say is my initial reading of this chapter was that Halkenburg did fire onto Benjamin, and that the arrow did struck, and that Halkenburg is inside of Benjamin's mind currently. And my conviction on that is based off of this. In 403, we are given this panel sequence where Balsamico is thinking about the poisoning plan. He then walks, stops, and then he starts to notice that something is wrong, and that leads into him getting shot, right? But this same sequence is happening here in 413. We have Benjamin walking, stopping, taking a pause, and then realizing that something is wrong. In Balsamico's case, he realizes Vict is behind him and that he has walked into Halkenburg's trap. In Benjamin's case, he realizes that he has symptoms of TSK-17. Whether this paneling sequence is working to indicate that Benjamin is shot, or if it simply is working to indicate that Benjamin is falling into Halkenburg's plans, which would lead up to him being shot, is unknown. But this proverbial arrow, which I still think a real arrow was shot, this proverbial arrow that Benjamin is walking towards could just be that the plan is under motion for Benjamin. Benjamin is within expectations, within measures that Halkenburg had planned for. And going back a bit, I really, really enjoy the idea that Halkenburg is in tier 3. I think that's really fun because Benjamin has to go to tier 3. That is one of the places he has to go if he wants to conclude the war. If he wants to consolidate power, he has to come here, right? He has to meet these people. He has to do something. He has to get all the powers. And if Halkenburg wanted a clean shot on Benjamin, you couldn't ask for a better place than having him come to you, right? Having him come down to tier 3 and take over his body and then finish all the legal processes that Benjamin had started. I think this also works with the rumbling plan. We don't know how spatially large you can sense the rumbling, but if tier 3 central political board is in the center of tier 3, maybe near the top, it is very feasible that Benjamin could still feel it. And so that this rumbling combined with a poisoning plan is all to wrestle up Benjamin into ending things as soon as possible and believing that Halkenburg is on tier 1 or has controlled someone on tier 1, when in actuality, he is sitting comfortably all the way down at tier 3. I can't find a tier 3 photo. So, that's it. I like that theory. I like that idea. This is essentially the explanation that by activating the rumbling, Halkenburg shows Ben that he is somehow still alive despite his body having died. This then gives Ben the ability to deduce that Halkenburg's ability must be some sort of body swap, which satisfyingly explains how Halkenburg is alive and also why Shikaku killed himself. Benjamin orders a search of 1009 for Balsamico, who he believes Halkenburg is residing in, before realizing he's infected with TSK-17, which causes him to prepare to declare martial law. Benjamin is under the assumption that Halkenburg and Unma orchestrated his lethal poisoning and that Halkenburg is operating within the bounds of Tier 1. how that all plays out, how Benjamin going down to tier 3 works out, how this arrow plays into things, who knows? And I know I started this video saying, figuring out Hulkenberg's Gambit or whatever. The answer is we don't know. We don't know what he could be doing. We don't know what the myriad of poisoning plans were to do. We don't know what contingencies he has set up. We know that he was talking with Kaiser, or presumably Wario had set up a contact with Kaiser and Halkenburg. And how any of that plays into anything is so far from known. I could very easily see Kaiser, playing into his Julius Caesar naming, becoming the dictator of the Black Whale, having power consolidated and then passed to him, perhaps by Halkenburg, possessing Benjamin and then passing it to him. Perhaps Benjamin dies and Halkenburg within Balsamico's body assumes his position and then is able to elect a new, or appoint a new like head of military or deputy advisor. I mean, the possibilities are really endless here of what could happen. This was merely just me trying to talk about some things that I don't think people had quite talked about. And another thing that I want to shoot down for a second is the conception that part of Hulkenberg's plan has something to do with Loserus, which I don't necessarily buy. We know that their rooms are next to each other, and we know in chapter Christ, when was it? 3. This is going to be a crazy bink if I get this. I think it's 386 is when this happens. Let's look. Haha, I got it. This is when Shikaku kills himself, right? There's a rumbling, he kills himself, and what that indicates is unknown. We don't know what this was. All we know is that there was a rumbling, and then Shikaku killed himself, and some people say that this whole sequence was planned so that somebody within Loserus' room would answer the telephone to talk with them. The arrow would then hit him, and then they would be possessed by one of Hulkenberg's people. And I don't necessarily believe that is true. If we look at chapter 382, when the first swap happened, we see that Shikaku, gets hit, and that both Shikaku, Shimano, whatever his name is, they both immediately collapse, and then Sumadori awakens within Shikaku's body. But in 386 here, this guy, Rice, he never passes out. He merely just stumbles backward. So I don't believe that is necessarily true. The other thing that I have against this idea is that Hulkenberg only has 14 personal guards. That's what he's listed. He has 14. And one of them was in Shikaku, which then went back to Sumadori's body, right? And we don't know where Sumadori is necessarily, I guess. Something could have happened. I think it's assumed that maybe they were killed to test where souls go. We don't really know. And then we know that one of them was also within Vic's body, right? So in that sense, they're down to 12 people, or at least 12 normal, clean people. And if we look here, this is 12 people. This is 12 of Hulkenberg's personal guards escorting his coffin. And from what we know, this is all of his personal retinue. This is all of them left, and so he wouldn't have anybody to have swapped into Rice's body. And even if he was able to swap into Rice's body, which would then give the location of Loserus later down the line to then possess, we know from the way the Grimoires Dissonance works is that only one of the swapped body souls can be alive or be conscious at once. Rice's body would have priority since Hulkenberg's supporters is in it. But, again, would that person live in Rice's body for the next 4 days without being suspicious at all? I'm so unknown of how that would play out. I feel it is pretty unlikely, and it's a large bet to hedge, even though Hulkenberg likes to hedge bets, but I really don't believe so. If anything, if Hulkenberg was firing an arrow somewhere in tier 1, I would probably say it would be Zhang Lei's room. As we know, Koventoba here, something's happening with him. And we know that Zhang Lei leaves before martial law is declared, so who knows? But I think that's it. I think that's everything I want to cover, honestly. I want to do more videos. I have some good stuff banked up for you. Let me tell you. I got a whole theory section here. I have a lot with Kacho and Fugetsu and Melody, going through their whole subplot. I have some more stuff about, Kakin's governmental structure here. And, I made a whole video about Kaiser that you can watch. It's not great, but it's a video. If you want to watch it, go ahead. I want to make more videos. I think I will, but as far as discussing Halkenburg and his Gambit, I think this is where it ends. So if you would all enjoy this video, subscribe, like, do all the dollary doos, and hopefully I'll see you in another one. Goodbye.